guess we're doing this now. Alright then. Here we go, finally. Yeah, econ, supply, demand, and graphing. Woohoo! Yeah, so much fun. Yeah, let's do this thing. Yeah, let's go. So, I picked up my pen and we are ready to go. Alright. What am I doing with my life? What was I saying again? Oh yeah, econ. Supply, demand, and graphing. So here we have two graphs, one of supply and one of demand. Right? Forgot to put the S there. That's my bad. Yeah. Alright, so this is the demand and supply curve that we've graphed regarding a life. Let's assume that a life is something that you can buy in the market. I sure wish it was, because we all know I don't have one of those. What am I doing with my life? So as you can see, the demand curve slopes downwards and the supply curve slopes upwards. Yes, these are linear. Don't worry about it. I said don't worry about it. In this case, you have quantity. You normally have quantity. Well, not normally. Yes, you have quantity on the x-axis and price on the y-axis. And same thing with supply. And so in this case, we have a point that's been labeled with a specific price and a specific quantity, and a supply that has been labeled with a specific price and a specific quantity. Alright? So this is actually quantity demanded and quantity supplied. There's a difference between supply and quantity supplied and demand and quantity demanded. The difference is that quantity demanded is just a reference quantity depending on a certain price for that market good or service. And supply or demand is the actual curve itself. So if there's a shift in quantity, then there's just a shift on the curve. But if there is a change in the demand or supply, a shift in the curve, then there's an actual change in the position of the curve, either to the left or to the right. Not up and down, to the left and to the right. Because if you think about it as up and down, you're going to get confused, alright? And I promise you, you'll get confused anyways. So in this case, if we were to combine these two into a market graph, so we have both a supply curve and a demand curve. Don't worry about the fact that they're not linear anymore. They weren't linear before, okay? I can promise you they weren't linear before. Don't worry about it. So in this case, we have the supply and demand curves. Again, the demand slopes downward, the supply slopes upwards. In our life market, mostly, hopefully, in every market, the supply goes up and the demand goes down, right? Otherwise, maybe you're on like planet Zelbar. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. What am I doing with my life? We have a labeled equilibrium quantity and an equilibrium price and equilibrium point. What is equilibrium? That's a good question. I don't know. An equilibrium is the point at which the demand and supply curve meet in a market graph, and that curve can shift, yada yada yada. This is so boring. What am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? Here's an example of a shift in quantity demanded. Yeah, that's a terrible beat. Don't worry about it. Shift in quantity demanded, as you can see, is just a shift on the curve. We move from one point to another. Let's assume that what happened was that the price of the life that we want to buy, haha, yes, stole life, has decreased. In that case, the quantity demanded will increase because more people want to buy a product if the price is lower. So that is how you would see a shift in the quantity demanded, but a shift in the demand would be a little bit different. Right? So an actual shift in demand, say that the price of a substitute were to decrease, which would mean that more people will more likely choose to buy that product rather than this product, right? Then in that case, what will happen is that less people will want to buy a life. In that case, what will happen is because the price hasn't changed, right? The price hasn't changed. The price is still the same. Instead, the demand has changed. So there's a new point on the curve. The price is still the same, but the number of people who want to buy the life has greatly or marginally, slightly diminished in that case, right? So less people are going to want to buy a life because of the lower cost of a substitute, and that is a very weird phrase to say, and I hope I never have to say something like that again. Who am I kidding? I'm probably going to have to say it tomorrow. What am I doing with my life? So that's how that shift would work, right? And so now if I want to go and do some sort of shift like that with the market graph for a life, you would have your supply, your demand, your quantity, your price, your equilibrium point, your price at equilibrium, and your quantity at equilibrium, right? So let's say that for a life, what happens is that the cost of input has increased. In that case, what's going to happen is that the supply is going to decrease because there is going to be more of a cost in order to actually produce those products or services. So the supply is actually going to shift to the left, right? It's going to decrease. So in that case, this is our new equilibrium point. So this is QE1, we'll call this E1, and then this is PE1, okay? And so that's how you would do a shift in that. And you can actually do a shift of both if there is if there's a determinant. This is called a determinant, hopefully you already know that. That will actually shift the curve, right? Of both the demand and the supply if you have a determinant that shifts both, right? And then that would result in you knowing the position of of the change in one of the parts, either the quantity or the price. You'll either know whether the quantity changed or the price changed, and what direction it went in. Like, you'll know that the quantity increased, but you won't know whether the price increased or decreased or stayed relatively the same, right? You won't have any idea because of the way that the shifts work. Yeah, that's basically how to graph supply, demand. Make sure you always have a title. You label everything, right? Make sure you label the curves, what they're supposed to be. Make sure you include your determinant if there's a shift. And if there's a shift in quantity, then you don't need to really include a determinant because a shift in quantity demanded or supplied isn't an actual shift of the curve. It's just a change in the point at which the change in the point on the curve. All right? So with that, I'll see you next time. What am I doing with my life?